All right, we're back for the next step series for keyboards and piano. This is episode 9. This is going to be a two-part episode. I've tried to do this 3 different times and it's gone 30 minutes, and that's longer than I can upload to YouTube. So we're going to do a two-part on this. So this is going to be when to play melody, when to play rhythm, how to back off or how to kind of play less. And I know we kind of covered that in another video session, but I want to talk in specifics to this category of playing melody. And then also when to solo or improvise. So I was approached by someone at our church who was interested in lessons, and she asked me, that's one of the main things she asked me was, I'm kind of confused when to play melody and when not to. And it's something I never thought about before because I was always in a situation that kind of forced me into figuring that out on my own. And so it was never something that I thought to bring up in a lesson, but since I was asked, we're going to go over that. And I was raised in an old-fashioned church that was just hymns, and it was a piano player and it was the congregation singing. And most piano music, especially hymns and hymnals, have the melody written into the chords. So it's easy, you're playing the notes. But that style of play has a lot of melody that you expect to hear coming from the piano. So I thought we would dive in with a hymn. And I don't know if I'm going to do it in this video or in part 2, but I also want to go into a Christmas carol because that's very hymn-based. They're older songs and everyone knows them, and most every church plays them around Christmas time. So it's something that if you're not a church that's going to play a traditional hymn, chances are you're going to play a version of a Christmas carol at some point. And it ties in together with the style of hymn playing. So we're going to go ahead and dive into that. Now, before I get started, I want to let you know there's no algorithm, there's no Venn diagram or system or mathematics equation with when do you play melody and when you don't. You listen for opportunities. And this really kind of falls into a situation of you have to assess if you are either the only instrument playing with the singer, maybe you're the only instrument playing and you're just doing instrumental, or do you have a band with you, but that band is just kind of slim pickings and there's no one else to really play a melody part or a lead part, or maybe you have a full band and you've got tons of instrumentation, an electric guitar player or an acoustic guitar player or maybe a saxophone or a violin, and they are going to play melody sometimes. This is how you kind of assess things. So let's start with the hymn like I talked about. So we're going to go to, let's do Great Is Thy Faithfulness. I don't know if you know this, but this is one of my favorite hymns. And let's just do everything in C. That way we don't have to worry about accidentals and figuring out obscure chords. Let's just go autopilot here, okay? So a hymn a lot of times has a tagline. It's a part of a chorus, or it's a lead into a chorus, or it's a tag on the end of it, or maybe it's a section of a verse. And in the old day, when you were playing this song, you would come in with and that was the tagline. You can hear it. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. That's what we just played. And then it would go into the verse. Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. So whenever you're playing an intro or a tagline like that, another hymn that you could do that on is, let's say it's Cornerstone. Or not Cornerstone, let's do one that everybody knows. So It Is Well. You might do an intro of that might be it. And you can even hear that melody line. It is well with my soul. You might come in just instruments playing that, and that's a pickup line for the singer to come in. When peace like a river attendeth my way. So that allows you to kind of usher in a verse section. Now, this is just up to the worship leader. This is up to your band and how you kind of decide to dive into this. But with hymns, there's something that that churches, every church goes through this, okay? Whenever you play a hymn, unless you are a church that traditionally does hymns, maybe every song you do in a set is from a hymnal or an old-fashioned type song like this. If that's the case, a hymn is not going to pop out to anybody like anything out of the ordinary. But in most of our cases, we're in the year 2020. A lot of the people that grew up on hymns, excluding me, I mean, I was born into a church that was like that, and I'm 33 years old, so most people that are going to recognize these hymns and have a true appreciation, they're going to be like in their 70s or 80s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s or more. And whenever they hear this, I've seen it in so many churches, when they hear a hymn pop out, especially this older style piano play, they rise out of their seats and they feel like they're going to charge into battle, and it's like a new awakening of the church, and they're belting out the melody. Like, this is their life moment right here. You're resurrecting a hymn. So they really, really appreciate a style of play that is reminiscent of what they're used to, which is, not that you have to do this intro, but if you play kind of in this older style, or at least learn to play a melody with this, that's really gonna pull out that older congregation to just sing out. So it's good to learn how to play a melody with a hymn. The melody is in there where there's a lot of that Disney harmony that we talked about that you hear. Whenever you have a melody that you can hear a harmony really well with, these hymns, that's how I learned to sing harmony, was listening to people around me singing 3-part harmony to hymns. And you can hear these harmonies throughout. The problem with hymns is that a lot of them have complex chord changes, okay? So with this one, even this intro chord, that's a diminished 7 chord. We have not talked about that chord yet. It probably won't be in this series, to tell you the truth. I think I'm going to do a little mini series on a little more complex chordings and voicings that you might tamper with from time to time. But we're not going to discuss in this video how to do a diminished 7 chord or kind of what makes a diminished 7. But there's just a lot of passing chords. There's a lot of movement in there. And there's 3 or 4 or 5 different ways you can even play what I just played. I did an extension and kind of a movement into another chord in there, but this is what hymns are written to, okay? So enough about hymns. We already know that they're obscure to do in modern worship services. You're only going to do them from time to time, but when you do them, the closer you can get to a traditional style of play, and especially learning to play melody, the better it is. So we've talked about an intro. Whatever intro you do, maybe you're not doing diminished chords, maybe you're doing fours and fives and ones, okay? If you're only playing the chords in that with the 4, 5s, and 1s, without a melody, it kind of sounds empty. Even with diminished chords, it kind of sounds empty. So you want to learn how to play melody with that. And with all these chord changes, that's going to take practice on your own. Remember, rehearsal, that's with other people. That's not your self-time. Practice is your self-time. So typically you would do an intro like that, and then you're into the verse. Now, this is probably going to be more of an intimate verse going into this, right? So you want the singer to establish the melody. If you start playing over that, it's going to sound excessive. It's going to sound like a little too traditional. So you've just done your intro, right? And then the singer comes in, right? Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be. So as you're playing that, you might ghost the melody a little bit. So in here I did, great is thy faithfulness, O God my Father. Right here, there is no. I kind of ghosted the melody in that section. So you can kind of pick certain parts that you might hear and play and accentuate that melody. And then as you get back into the chorus, great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, morning by morning new mercies I see. All I have needed thy hands hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. You can stay out of playing the melody through all of that. You don't have to go into the melody. Now, typically when you do a hymn like this, you're doing multiple verses. So, summer and winter and springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above. You might get into that second time through the chorus, and you might want to start playing the melody there, right? There's your melody now. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, morning by morning new mercies I see. All I have needed thy hand hath provided. And then you can branch off from there. You don't have to stick with it. Just because you started a chorus that way doesn't mean you have to stick with it. So that is going kind of through the song. If you hear that the melody can kind of have a similar harmony to it, that's probably a good melody that you want to drift in and out of, or at least experiment with. Play the melody at some point in that song. If you don't play the melody throughout the whole song, it's not a big deal. I mean, you heard me go through a verse and a chorus section where I didn't play the melody at all. If there's enough people singing, it kind of frees you up to just do your own thing. That's the same thing that happens with the band. If you have a band that you've got an electric guitar player, acoustic guitar player, a bassist, a violin player, a drummer, a flautist, a flute player, or any other instrument, you've got a band in and of itself, and you're just adding simple elements to just accentuate things. You don't want to overplay in a big band like that. Everybody has to learn how to walk on eggshells and come in and out of playing. So with that one, with a hymn, it's going to be piano driven mainly. Most hymns are piano driven because they were written for piano. They were performed originally throughout many decades on piano. So the rest of the band is probably going to kind of throw that to you. But maybe you're doing an instrumental for an offertory and you're kind of going through this and you've got a saxophone player that's playing the melody. you can just improvise by that point. So that kind of it creates a segue for me to talk about when to learn how to back off. Okay, so I still want to stay within this hymn, but that was an example of if you have a big band that's playing, maybe you can just go into not focusing on the melody at all, but just go into chord progressions, right? Now, if it gets to a point where you're just playing in a regular setup and there's not like a massive band, but it's not a small band, and you're just kind of playing, you might get to a point where at the end of the song, maybe the rest of the band's dropped out and it's just you and the piano player, or you and the singer again. So if that's going on, by all means, it's just you. You might go through a chorus again. You can just play over that melody. You can hear that melody being played as I'm playing that. You can hear that singer playing that in your head. So if it's just you at prayer time, and it's you and the singer, then you need to kind of back off a little bit, play into dynamics. You can change the tempo at that point. A lot of times you can slow it down, and it makes it a little more intimate feeling. Now when the singer cuts out and whoever's praying is actually praying, now it's just you. And if it is just you, it needs to stay just you, okay? Especially if you're just doing chords. This is where the problem comes in with people getting lost. Sometimes if you're playing with the band and it's prayer time and it's just you're just playing chords. Well, if the band's hanging in there with you, they may not know where you're going. They may not understand that you're wanting to stay in a verse. And this really is more evident when we get into playing more of a modern worship song, where there's not a lot of chord changes. You can pretty easily hear, even without playing the melody, what the verse chords are. It's different. It's very different from the chorus chords. But when you get into a song that's very repetitive, like a modern worship song, it can easily get lost. So the bassist might think that you're going to the chorus next, but you haven't actually established that because you're not playing the melody. So he's in the chorus, you're still on the verse, you're wanting to hang on the verse, but no one knows you're wanting to hang on the verse, and everybody starts going their own directions, and it can create madness, especially a major distraction when it's prayer time. Now, I will get more into that when we cover the modern a modern worship song, and we'll probably go into fullness. We're going to cover that more then, but I want to make sure that we cover everything that there is for the uncommon parts, like hymnals and Christmas carols. So stick with me on this. I hate breaking this up into two sections, which is why I tried to do this in one whole video 3 different times, but it was 30 minutes long. So there's not a great pausing point on this, but I think with this one, I want to move on to the next song. So please stick in for the next video. We're going to go to part 2 right now.